Class, guess who? It's Mrs. Calvi again. This tutorial is on calculating the mean absolute deviation, and that is sometimes known as MAD, as you see I have in the upper left-hand corner here. And basically the mean absolute deviation is finding the average distance between each of your data values. So finding the average distance between each of these and the mean of the data set. Or basically seeing how spread out your values are within your data set. All right, so the first step in order to calculate the mean absolute deviation is to actually calculate the mean. We all know how to do that by now. You are just adding up all of the numbers and dividing by how many numbers there are. So we're just going to add up these values. I have 18.6. I'm going to add 19.3. I'm going to add 17.7. I'm going to add 20.0, and then I'm going to divide that by how many numbers I have in my data set, which is 4. So my mean for this data set, if I did it in my calculator, I would get 18.9 as my mean. Okay, so now step 1, calculate the mean, which is what we did. Step 2, I'm going to take my mean and I'm going to subtract that from each of these numbers. So I'm going to start with 18.6. I'm going to subtract 18.9. I'm going to then take 19.3, subtract 18.9, and so on and so forth. The one thing you have to know about calculating the mean absolute deviation, there are no negative numbers. So even if you get a negative number, you're going to make it positive. So for example, if we were to take 18.6 and subtract 18.9 from it, that would give us a negative value, but we're going to keep it as positive. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through and actually do these calculations. So I'm going to take 18.6, which is my first value in my data set. I'm going to subtract my mean from it, 18.9. Typically, that would give me a negative number, but I'm going to keep it as a positive 0.3. I'm then going to take my 19.3, subtract my mean from it, and that would give me 0.4. I would then take 17.7, subtract my mean. I would get 1.2. And then take 20, subtract my mean, and I would get 1.1. Okay, so step 1 was to calculate the mean of my data set, which was 18.9. Step 2 was to take that mean and subtract every number in my data set from it, which is what I did here. Okay. So I took every number in my data set, subtracted my mean from it, and came up with these values. Now, next step is to calculate my new mean with my new number. So now all I'm doing is I'm calculating my mean of these new values that I have here. And we know to calculate the mean, you're going to add up all of your numbers, divide by how many numbers you have. All right, so I'm going to do that over here. I'm going to take 0.3, 0.4, 1.2, 1.1. I would add those, which would give me 3.0. Do I have that right? Okay, and then I'm going to divide that by how many numbers I have, which happens to be 4. And if I take 3 and I divide it by 4, I would end up getting 0.75. So that means my mean absolute deviation, or my MAD, is equal to 0.75. Okay, So just to recap, we find the mean of our data set, add up all the numbers, divide by how many numbers there are. Then we take that mean and we subtract it from each of these numbers, which is what we did here. Then we take the mean of our new data set. So add these numbers up, divide by 4 because there are 4 numbers, and that gives us our mean absolute deviation, which is 0.5. So basically that's telling us how spread out our values are. Our values are spread out by approximately 75 hundredths. All right, guys, that's all for mean absolute deviation. I will talk to you soon.